Hey guys, we are live again with another Q&A. This is the third Q&A we do. This one, the schedule was announced on Patreon. If you'd like to know when the schedule for the Q&A is, the next one is also already up there. So it's just going to give some time for people to connect and start asking some questions. We had quite a few interesting questions last time. We talked a lot about trills. Yeah, what else? We talked about a few specific pieces. I would say try to be as specific as you can in your questions. That'll help a lot, especially if it's in pieces. If you can identify the specific places in the pieces. So we already got a few people on. Hey guys. We just did an amazing concert on Friday. 2 days ago at the Polish consulate in Montreal. It was with one of our new trios. It's the Aries trio with Richard Stolzel. He's an amazing trumpetist, and we're playing all this new music, it's new music, but very, very nice to listen to. And we got a pile of crazy ideas and projects for this trio. It's going to be a lot of fun. Some things are being uploaded on YouTube, and the entire concert was filmed and recorded. It's already on Patreon. So you can watch it on there. Little parts of it are going to come up on YouTube. Zana says, could you talk about Chopin's life? Well, I'm curious what it is you'd like to know specifically, but because I mean, if you go on Wikipedia, you probably find the most easiest stuff there, but Chopin was obviously a very introverted kind of personality, and you find that in his music. One of the best things you can do also is read his letters. It gives you an idea also of who his friends were, and it gives a different side of him than just his music. I'm not sure exactly what to say about Chopin. He was a very sick person. He that's probably not the most interesting thing to start with, but he did die at 39, which is so young. But the interesting flip side of that is that he matured so quickly as a composer. He was such a mature composer at a young age. His early works are already so mature, things that he was writing at 8 years old. Yeah, so he was a prodigy in Poland, and then he moved to Vienna, where he lived for a short while. And soon after, Poland ceased to exist as a country. So he could never return back to Poland, but he had this very patriotic kind of love. I mean, I think something that probably we all have, because it's just home. So you can imagine leaving your home and never being able to go back. What that might do to you because of the struggles in Poland. It was invaded by 3 countries. So he lived the rest of his life in France, mostly in Paris, sometimes in Nohant, I think it was called, where there was a country house of George Sand. And you find this kind of torment of not just, I don't want to say patriotic, I mean, there is some patriotic nationalistic thing, but you can imagine it's also a personal thing of not being able to return home, this kind of torment that you find in so much of his music. You know, if you listen to the sonatas, for example, the second sonata, it's so clearly there. So, yeah, I think that's, and then this introverted kind of thing, there's so many stories of Chopin. Well, probably one of the most interesting things to say about him is that he was a much greater improviser than composer. So putting things on paper wasn't his greatest talent. It was making music up. And we say about him that the greatest things he ever wrote, we never heard because he didn't get them written down. There's even some talk about Fontana, one of his close friends, doing a lot of. He was one of his editors. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check that. specifically, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it's believed that quite possibly Fontana was writing a lot of the music for him while he would play it, because just wasn't so good at putting it on paper, and you can see that when you look closely at his music. Even in some of the new editions of Chopin, there's so many different ways of playing it. So he would play a mazurka, let's say at the beginning of a concert, and it was very mazurka-like, and he would replay the same mazurka at the end completely differently in another tempo. It was almost like a nocturne style, And Liszt would tell him, because he lived with Liszt, they lived together in Paris for about 2 years, something like that. Liszt would tell him that he was writing one thing and playing something completely differently than he had written. Are you discussing anything specific, or can we just bombard you with questions? Yeah, do bombard me with questions. That's great. Oh, here we have, could you tell us about Kramer studies? I was thinking about that because we did talk about Czerny and we didn't talk about Kramer studies, and those are beautiful, actually. I think I like them more than Czerny. I had a teacher who gave me a bunch of Kramer studies when I was about 16, and those are really good as well. I have them somewhere here in a very old book. I think here they are, actually. This looked like it came on the Ark. And a lot of these are just really nice, and they work on similar kind of things as Czerny. So if you're more advanced, you can probably go and look at them all. But there's a few of them in general that are really nice, He obviously wrote a ton of them. This is the 4th book I have here. I'm not familiar with the other ones. These are the only ones I've looked at. And a bunch of them I've played. There's LXV1. That would be 66 or something like that. Just have a look at them and see if there's some of them you like. There's one here for repeated notes. Yeah, that's all right. I'm not a big fan of repeated notes. This one is beautiful. LXX2. I think that's 72. Really nice, and you'll find some things with rotation and all kinds of different things to work on in there. So yeah, Kramer studies are, again, similar to the same level as those Massicotte studies that we were talking about, and Czerny as well. Could you tell us about your musical education? Sure. Well, I think probably where if you read my bio on my website, you have just like the basic stuff where I studied. But probably the more interesting thing to say, I guess, was I studied with someone for years. Well, I never learnt technique actually until I was about 18. So that was kind of interesting. I had probably a lot of people. I know several people who were in this situation where I was able to play things, my fingers were fast. I could play things that were really difficult, but I didn't have I just did not know anything about technique. It was nothing that, my teachers really talked about very much, at least. Yeah, it's kind of, especially when I went to the Conservatory of Montreal, I studied with someone who just didn't talk about technique at all. So it was only after, it was about 18 that I started to realize that there's even such a thing as, technique and all these things I'm talking about all the time, wheel and rotation. And it's one of the reasons I'm putting all these videos up is I wish I had that. I wish I was able to watch these videos when I was 10, and see someone talk about this stuff. it would have been a heck of a lot easier than having all these bad habits that you have to get rid of after. So anyway, I went to University of Montreal. I studied with someone named Marc Durand, who was just, he spent his life studying technique and putting things together that he had learned from different places, and human anatomy and how to play the instrument and defy the laws of gravity, as he would say. And he was very, very intelligent about this, I think. He retired a few years ago. After that, I went to Vienna for 2 years. You know, I went there, I came back. I went back and forth for a while to study with someone else that I really appreciated there. And at the same time, I also went to a lot of, you know, music camps in the summer. There was one nearby here. There used to be one in Banff, which was amazing. There's one in Gijón in Spain that's in Asturias in the north. It's amazing. I went to a bunch, and just, you know, I feel lucky because I got to play for so many different people. You know, they're all in my bio. I just put all their names there, but it's great, I think, to get different ideas from different people, not only from YouTube, but to actually play for them and have them teach you. So I think that's really important. And I had a teacher also who was very possessive at the conservatory, a Conservatoire of Music in Montreal. So I was there from the time I was 15. My parents actually, they heard me play and thought that I was pretty good, but they didn't know what to compare me to. So, you know, we went to see someone who had recommended that I go study at the Conservatoire of Music in Montreal, because you can do that at, you know, at a young age. You don't have to be, you know, like starting a university or college studies. So yeah, anyway, I had a teacher who was very possessive. So he didn't like that I went and took lessons with other people. So I think that's something you have to be smart about. I don't think it's a good idea to lock yourself into, you know, being like an exclusive monogamous teacher-student relationship. Although it's normal that some teachers who are very convicted about what they're trying to teach you will try to keep you to learn their things for a certain amount of time before getting confused and bombarded by different information, because it's true that not everyone is going to teach things the same way, obviously, and not everyone's teaching things that make sense. So people are going to contradict themselves, each other rather. And sometimes there's two different techniques, and one might be a little better than the other, but they both work. And it can be very confusing playing for someone, and then you start doing strange things, especially if it's just a few lessons. But I still, overall, I just encourage it, because I think you have so much to learn, and it's up to you to decide if you have a teacher that's being possessive because they're just possessive and don't want to lose you as a student, and think that they're the greatest teacher, which unfortunately is the case with, I'm sorry to say, but you know, 90% of teachers out there, maybe I'm exaggerating, but a lot of really amazing teachers, that they kind of have this attitude where, you know, they found something that works and they teach that, and they tend to discredit a lot of people around them. So there can be some value. I'm kind of rambling on about this, but anyway, let's get on to some other questions maybe about technique and stuff like that. I mean, if you have any other questions about that, I'm happy to talk about it. Hi, Barbara. Hi everyone. Hi, Matthias, Daniel, Marcio, Donald. Okay. How are arpeggiated accompaniments with larger leaps in the left hand practiced the best way to reach precision? Arpeggiated accompaniments with larger leaps. That's kind of like what we have in this first Kramer study, I think. I'm not sure. These aren't really arpeggiated, so maybe that doesn't count. We have stuff like... So this sort of thing. So if it's arpeggiated, it's similar. Well, one thing to consider, when you have leaps, you always have a horizontal movement. So that's like going from right to left, back and forth this way. But there's also some kind of vertical movement. So the vertical movement is going up and down. So it's going a little bit like this. So not just, if I do it here, not just this way, but there's like an arch going. So you have this vertical movement kind of going up. If I exaggerate it, it's going to go like this. And that kind of, it helps, because if you're just going this way, I'm not sure the technicality why this is the case. Let's make something up. I'm not sure. I find what helps in this, you know, when you have this wheel, we're going down, try to get the lower note that's harder to hit in the front. So that means we're going forwards like this. So if you land on it this way, see if that's harder or easier if you come into the note like this instead of going down on it. That might make a difference. But for sure, you know, this is giving a kind of structure, having some kind of structure inside the jump. So whether it's, you know, doing the arch. Now the arch is backwards, of course, you know. So if you have something like this, we're still doing a wheel. See, we're coming up here, and then we're going back down to come down. So that should help with jumps. I think I did a video on jumps some time ago, but that's probably, that's how I do it. I'm coming in down in the left hand and inside to get to the key. Not going like this, falling like that on the note, but like this. That should help with arpeggiated left hand. If you have specific examples, that's going to help as well. Although I don't know if I have the music to it. Do you have any tips on approaching fast, repeated chords and turns, such as Schumann's first piano sonata? Oh, that's a beautiful sonata. And Haydn Hoboken 48 C major sonata, first movement. 48 C major. Which one is that? Do I have it? It would be fun if I did. Probably have it in here. Let's see. I don't even know if they... Okay, Hoboken 48. Here we go. I don't know the sonata very well. Okay, so if you can give me the specific place where your question is in that sonata, maybe we can go into that more detail as we get down to this first movement. Yeah, repeated chords and turns. Maybe just be a little more specific where in that, because I do have the score here and we can look at it. So I know what you mean. Schumann first sonata. I haven't played that. I really want to. Again, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Repeated chords. Is that something like, or yeah? I don't know exactly. If you can be a little more specific, then we can go into that. Do you think talent is necessary, or is it a matter of practice and right techniques? Well, for sure, it's a combination of the two. You know, having a predisposition, it means you're going to learn faster, but I guess talent is something that helps, and technique is kind of indispensable, because if you don't practice and you don't have the right technique, good luck. So, do lessons help with sight reading, or is it just a matter of time? Lessons. I know theory. I'm just particularly bad at it. Do lessons help with sight reading? You mean sight reading lessons? I'm not quite sure what you mean, Donald. Or having piano lessons. Is having piano lessons going to help your sight reading? Not really. I mean, what's going to improve your sight reading is reading music that you don't know, and that you're and new music all the time, and always be reading music. If you're playing the same thing over and over, that's not improving your sight reading. So, you know, I don't see how having a lesson is gonna do that. Can you talk about playing in between the black notes? Not always playing at the edge of white notes. Playing between the black notes, i.e. not always playing at the edge of black notes. Well, one thing you'll find is the further you go in, the harder it is. It's like the notes are heavier there, and it's easier to stay more around the space where the black notes and the white notes meet. And if you're just on the white notes, I suppose you can be more there. Playing in between black notes, this can be complicated for people with, you know, big stocky fingers. In which case, you know, I would try to come here a little bit. Try to come out as much as you can, if you can. You know, some people will have a hard time doing that. But see, if you keep the fingers very straight, then that's possible. If you're like this, then that's might be uncomfortable. So I'm a fan of straighter fingers. You know what we say, when I first had lessons, they would say, you know, even in this book, your hands should be round like you're holding an apple. That's not true. You know, that's just, it depends on the case. But a lot of times, it's much better to have something more like this. More of this kind of angle with straighter fingers rather than bending here. You know, even if you're doing, let's say, like rotation, that's really hard to do with the fifth finger if you're bent like this. The fifth finger needs to be straight like this. The opposite of playing violin. So once the finger is straight, because we're playing on the side of the finger with rotation. I'm getting a little off of playing in between the black keys. But in general, I would just, you know, I don't know what's the complication, if it's because you have large fingers that do this. But in general, try to stay away from going too far in there. Try to stay more here if that's comfortable to you. And having straight fingers kind of helps, you know, because you're bringing the fingers back a little bit. Talk about La Campanella. I haven't played La Campanella, so I'm not really going to talk about it so much. I think someone else would be better suited to talk about it than me. You know, what do you have in there? A lot of jumps in the right hand. I'd have to look at it. I've barely ever looked at that thing. I didn't ever found it a very interesting piece to play, but I'll probably get to it eventually. Do you have any tips on repeated octaves? Okay, cool. We kind of touched on that lightly in I think the first Q&A. If you're doing this, it's going to help. You know, have some kind of... This reminds me of... Sonata. So I would get very tired doing this. And I found that having this kind of movement same thing here. This might be like the repeated chords in the previous chord. So these things here, if you're staying inside the keys as much as possible, this is something you can practice with the octaves. Try to repeat the octaves. Use the movement here is going to help immensely. If you can't hear me while I'm playing at the same time, let me know. I'm using a different microphone today. So use this. This is going to help. And then stay inside the keys, which means see if you can repeat the octaves without letting the keys come entirely up, you know? So it's almost there. You can see that it never really reaches the height of, let's say I'm playing C of the B that's raised. So we're really playing inside. That's going to help. Why is this frozen? Do we have a technical difficulty? My image is frozen, so let me know if it's still working for you guys. But that's going to help a lot. I don't know why this is frozen. Do you guys still see me okay? Is the video frozen? Just let me know. Someone let me know if it's okay. Where were we here? We got a lot of questions. Repeated octaves. Yeah, so that should hopefully answer the question. Any tips on playing fast octaves like the Chopin octave etude in B minor? Yeah, for sure. It's frozen. It's frozen, but we have sound. That's weird. I might have to restart the thing. So we'll have a part 1 and part 2 after. Because it doesn't look like it's unfreezing. Yeah, I think I'm just going to go ahead and restart it, which is kind of a shame. So yeah, you guys can just jump over to the other one, and we should be back up in about 30 seconds here.